for us to get information out there around that. What's significant about first trimester exposure? Right? 50% of pregnancies are not necessarily planned, are surprises. And so we have, as we have more women, we've already talked about this with Dr. Horn, I think, more women using marijuana of childbearing age, they may not even know they're pregnant. So that first trimester issue is really important.
Are y'all looking at that in Colorado?
We are looking at that, correct. Are we looking at that? And that is, yeah, we have a registry in Colorado to look at some of these things. We don't know. We need more information related to malformations, prematurity. It is associated, marijuana use maternally is associated with neonatal admission. Is that for psychosocial reasons because, you know, the baby tested positive for marijuana, now we need to get social work involved and work on a disposition? Is it for that or is it for true medical reasons? We don't know. Need more data. All right, toddlers. So toddlers, we've clearly seen an increase in exposures to toddlers related to marijuana. This was a study by my friend Dr. Wang et al. In Colorado at Children's Hospital. Basically 14 marijuana exposures in children less than 12 years of age since 2010. That was a significant increase pre-post 2010 when we had our de facto legalization of marijuana in the state. That's when you could go, it was still medical, but you could go to a doctor and say, hey, my big toe hurts. Can you give me a recommendation? And that's a medically, I think if a toddler accesses marijuana, that's a medical emergency. So 8 of these patients were admitted medically for lethargy and 2 to the intensive care unit. Do any of our pediatric colleagues have anything to say about that? And I think it's a big issue also as we get more candies, brownies, sodas, gummy bears, things that could potentially be very appealing to toddlers. I think this is a big issue. I really pushed in Colorado for child-proof packaging for all marijuana products and was really shot down. That was thought to be too expensive. So that could be something really to strive for if it ever comes here. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so the Colorado experience is sort of alarming as far as just the variety of goodies they have laced with THC, and there's no, even though they might say there's 6 servings, a serving is something like 5 milligrams THC, but there will be a brownie that has 20 servings in it, and so if you eat the whole brownie, you're getting way stoned.
Right. I'm going to talk about that in a second in terms of concentrates and the products and everything. And I think there could be some actionable steps if marijuana ever comes here. Is that it? Are we good? Okay. Cool.
I want you to tell us all about dosing and how much you can eat and the brownie.
Dosing and how much you can eat and all that. We are going to get to that here. So, let's just jump here. The main concerns are adolescents developing brain. The adolescents have, the brain is really developing. 1 in 6 who tries marijuana develops an addiction to marijuana. Yes, marijuana is addictive, not just psychologically addictive, physically addictive too, in terms of tolerance, withdrawal, some of those things. We can talk more about that. Heavy marijuana exposure starting in adolescence predicts up to an 8-point drop in IQ from age 13 to 38. What's the drop in IQ with pediatric lead exposure? It's about 6 points, right? And so we got it out of our paint, out of our fuel, out of everything, and we took that very seriously. This is a really important story. You see all the references there, like every month. I've stopped putting references because it's like every month there's a new study on adolescent exposure to marijuana, predicts adults, psychosis, schizophrenia, and probably a 2 to 4-fold increased risk of psychosis, schizophrenia with adolescent exposure. How much marijuana can I be exposed to as an adolescent and not have an increased risk, right? Every teenager asks me that. You know, there's no known safe amount of marijuana use for adolescents. It looks like about 4 or 5 exposures, and it really starts to go up. But it is dose dependent. The more exposure people have, it looks like the greater the risk of psychosis and schizophrenia. No doubt in the world, marijuana use for teenagers is associated with decreased school achievement, lots of CB1 receptors in the hippocampus, really important for learning and memory. Increased risk of using other substances, that's the gateway effect. So there really is no debate about youth who use marijuana 2 to 3 times more likely to use other substances. The debate is about why that's the case. Is it because you have a dealer for marijuana, you have a dealer for cocaine, or is it that there's something else going on? We just don't know why. And then this is hot off the press. Did anybody see it? The depression study came out in JAMA a month ago or less. In fact, last night I had to put it in my slides because I had already sent them to Corey. But adolescent marijuana use, this was a meta-analysis of about 30,000 kids, and adolescent exposure to marijuana predicted an increase, there's the odds ratio, in depression as adults. Odds ratio isn't very big there, but the odds ratio around a suicide attempt is rather worrisome there. So about a 3.5-fold increased risk of having a suicide attempt as an adult with adolescent exposure to marijuana. So I think the bottom line, again, if anybody's zoned out, is marijuana bad for adolescent brain development, cognitively, emotionally. Depression, psychosis, school achievement, addiction are our main concerns. You know, here's something too in terms of adults. You know, for some reason, we are not finding that marijuana causes cancer the same way tobacco does, even though if you line up tobacco smoke, marijuana smoke, they're highly similar in terms of carcinogens. But we haven't found the association with marijuana use and cancer yet. So maybe there's some, it's thought maybe there are some antioxidants, like cannabidiol might be an antioxidant that's a little bit protective. So fewer than 10 joint years not associated with lung cancer. A joint year is smoking a joint a day for 10 years. Would be the definition of that. So I've had some kids say, it's okay that I smoke weed because no, it's okay that I smoke tobacco because I also smoke weed, and that's going to protect me. That's not the case, right? So that's, no, right? But it is true, we haven't found the same, you know, cancer association that we would expect to. But clearly marijuana has carcinogens in it when smoked. Clearly there's an association with pre-malignant changes. You know, stay tuned with this. Increased risk of ischemic stroke, especially in young men, heavy users. There are lots of CB2 receptors to which THC binds in platelets, white blood cells, those kind of cells in the body. So that might be the mechanism around that. Not to mention there's lots of carbon monoxide in marijuana smoke and some other things. Has anybody seen that by chance? There's like a zillion case reports of young men with ischemic stroke, increased risk of myocardial infarction, about a 4-fold increased risk of heart attack in the hour after using marijuana. Why? It increases pulse. And then if you're smoking it, carbon monoxide and other chemicals that increase the load on the heart. Cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome. Has anybody seen this? Tracking this at all? Yeah, some of our ER docs especially might see this. But we're seeing a lot of this now in terms of just cyclic vomiting. Every so often, just a day or so of terrible retching. And these patients present to the emergency room, and the workup is completely negative, and 95% of the cases are relieved by a warm shower or bath. No one knows the mechanism of that, but it's really interesting. The treatment is stopping using marijuana, which is like the last thing. People are in this cycle where I need to use more marijuana for my hyperemesis, and that they're going the wrong way.
So in other words, if you took some marijuana, you would stop drug habits withdrawal.
Right, so in other words, it's kind of, people are in a really bad spot here. If they stop using marijuana, they'll go through with marijuana withdrawal, which is restlessness, anxiety, insomnia, irritability, poor appetite, strange dreams, tremor, hot and cold. Or if they keep using marijuana, it perpetuates their cannabinoid hyperemesis. So they're really in a tough spot. I do want to highlight daily use and memory impairment for 7 days. Marijuana has subacute impairments. So alcohol, you go, you get drunk tonight, and then tomorrow you're okay, except for a hangover. Marijuana, heavy use, carries with it some memory impairment and some other cognitive impairment for a few days after using. So that's kind of unique to marijuana. Marijuana legalization, boom, it takes off like wildfire. There's a huge industry behind this, and it's highly commercialized now. You see here, we have, we have over 2,000, over 2,000 commercialized agencies now in the state. And as you can imagine, that's a heavy lobby and everything. So it's very powerful in the state. You have, these are some of the products that are new since legalization. You have green crack, which is marijuana. It's just 20+% THC by weight. So 70s and 80s, it was 2 to 3% THC. Now it's 20+%. Earwax, does that look delicious? Right before lunch, right? Earwax is very highly potent as well. Shatter, definitely seen that. Butane hash oil can be 90% THC by weight. We're going to talk about that more. But so if you allow, so I heard 3 ounces is what's being proposed in North Carolina. You guys are very radical. We can only allow 2 ounces. But if you have 3 ounces of butane hash oil, which is 90+% THC by weight, that's about 3,000 doses of marijuana. So the concentrates you have to be very careful with. And it's really sneaky. They're sneaking that into the language wherever it's been legalized. Yes?
What are they using in the dab pens?
We're getting to that. Thank you for the summary there. Yeah, so those are some of the new products. Marijuana. So this is the Denver Post. Has a section, the cannabis. Marijuana is marijuana, but it's just very potent. Snoop Dogg has his own brand of vape pen. These are just some products. This is, for the women in the room, what's this? Mascara, right? But this is actually a vape pen. So you can vape marijuana through this. You're not combusting it, but you're heating it and aerosolizing marijuana and then inhaling it from there. And it's thought to be safer, but not safe. Still some carcinogens. High lighters, get it? High lighters. So kids, so you can imagine in schools, this is a real problem for adults to monitor this because there's more and more discreet ways of doing this. So this looks like a metered dose inhaler for asthma, but it's really a vaporizer for a way of using marijuana. And not only is that, but then you have a great review in the Denver Post, our newspaper, about all these wonderful discreet ways of using marijuana. And you can imagine, again, if you're trying to have a drug-free school environment or something like that, it's going to be very difficult for you to do that. These are some of the products here. The gummy bears can have, so a dose of marijuana is 10 milligrams of THC. An oral dose of marijuana is 10 milligrams of THC. And so you can see, for example, those Chiba Chews, which are like Tootsie Rolls, are quad doses. So you have 40 milligrams in there. And so you're technically supposed to cut it into fourths. But when you're eating candy, I multiply. I don't know about you guys, but I tend to multiply, not divide when I'm eating candy. And so that's a real complexity. Not to mention the time to maximum blood concentration with oral use is 2 hours, 2 to 3 hours. So like doing shots of vodka or something, you can have some Chiba Chews, feel nothing, more Chiba Chews, feel nothing, more Chiba Chews, feel nothing, and then boom, it hits you like a freight train. And that's where we've had the overconsumption experiences where people get psychotic and they end up in our ERs. A boy on my son's soccer team, you may have heard of this, his father used a Chiba Chew and became psychotic and shot and killed his wife. And so the Chiba Chews were off the market for a while, now they're back on the market. And you can see that appeals to kids. Look at the advertising, look at the colors, look at the, sweet flavors, everything. It clearly is targeting young people with their advertising and marketing. Again, this is inside of a dispensary, and I've taken several tours of dispensaries, and they look like candy stores, right? So really, products that are designed to appeal to young people. We're in North Carolina, the tobacco state. We know that tobacco products targeted young people. You gotta get people when they're young in order to develop the heavy users, in order to develop your profits. So I think there's nothing new under the sun. Yes, sir.
Have any of the candy manufacturers gone after them for infringements?
Have any of the candy manufacturers gone after them for infringements? Not so much. They could, and B, they should, and C, not so much. We need more people complaining about these things. Sodas, made by Dixie Elixirs in Colorado, bright colors, sweet flavors, cartoon advertising.
There's catalogs
Right.
right up there. I don't know why. I guess they're going to get in the marijuana business themselves.
Totally illegal. What's this? So this is a dab rig. So this is new since legalizing marijuana. Dabbing is just a whole nother way of using marijuana. It's another world, another experience. So you have a blowtorch heating a filament till it's really hot. Then you drop some butane hash oil or some wax onto it, or some kind of concentrate, and you take a hit from the pipe right there. And it's supposed to be just another way of doing it that's just amazing. And so you can imagine you have young people, you have blowtorches, you have intoxication, usually not a great combination of things. Go ahead, yes sir.
I have a friend who works at Cedar.
Yeah, I worked there some years.
He said that he's had, it's common when people come in with these vape pens and stuff, they've had burns on their hips.
Right,
They've lost, a couple of patients have actually lost eyes because it blew up in their face.
right.
Yeah.
These vape pens that I showed you can blow up in your face. Some of them have, and there have been some really bad burns related to that. So let's see here, I've lost my slides here for a second, but I think. All right, any other questions, comments while we're taking care of our IT concerns?
From a dental standpoint,
yes.
they're in Canada, from a dental standpoint, they're starting to put CBG in toothpaste, mouthwash in Europe, and they're starting to put
gosh.
CBD in Coca-Cola products in Canada.
Yeah, marijuana's this cure-all. It's kind of, I did want to say one thing real fast, and this is again like Dr. Horn did. I'm kind of getting down and speaking for myself. We had a very rich discussion at my church around what's the right amount for a Christian adult, what's the right amount of recreational marijuana for a Christian adult to use, right? It's my personal belief, 0, and I'm talking recreational, I'm not talking medical, I'm talking recreational, not medical. It is my personal belief 0, right? Because you use marijuana to get high, right? You can have a glass of wine, you're not getting drunk, but why would you smoke marijuana not to get high? If you didn't like it? I don't get it. From a recreational standpoint. Yes, sir.
One question I had even before this talk, and maybe you
Right. So can you take a cannabinoid from a convenience store and then somehow turn it into THC? That's a really good question. I don't know the answer.
Take them both.
Yeah.
It's like a methadone for THC, or could you use it for the addictive, effects, someone with hyperemesis, could they take
Right.
it chemical?
Can you take a cannabinoid for like cannabinoid hyperemesis? I think it's not known.
Yeah.
We don't know yet. This is the advertising clearly targeting. Oh, it's not working here. Craig, can you help again? It's not showing what's on the screen here, but that's all right. Oh, really? It's on here, but it's not on there. Oh, you think that works better? Oh, but look, it's still not there.
Maybe it got into the slides. There's still some CD on the slides.
Yeah, maybe that's what happened.
Are you using internet?
No, it's
I don't think so.
Everybody turn off their cell phones.
You want to switch there? Okay, all right. That's fine. Yeah, so let's see here. I was going to talk, let's see, what can I talk about without my slides here? What would be fun?
Well, Chris, I've got
Yes.
a question.
Yeah.
I know that when it started out in Colorado, the big push was the economic,
Oh, right.
benefits to the state, all the tax money that was gonna come in and all of that. Has anybody looked at the other side of it? What does it cost the state, you know, in social work and hospital bills and marijuana, driving under the influence and stuff like that?
I have a parallel question.
Yeah.
My daughter moved to Denver this
Right.
summer, and within a month, she was rear-ended by a young man who
Right.
was high as a kite.
Right.
And the police refused to charge him with being intoxicated, although
Right.
he clearly was. And my daughter-in-law was explaining, well, there's no good test,
Right.
unlike alcohol, to prove that. So they basically said if you don't see them impaired, they're not going to charge them with driving while high.
So what's, yeah. So on the one hand, marijuana, I think it's like $80 million goes into Colorado tax money from the marijuana industry. On the other hand, we know from alcohol and tobacco that alcohol and tobacco taxes pay for 1/10 of their actual social costs. So alcohol and tobacco taxes pay for 1/10 of the actual social costs. And it's my belief that that would be the same for marijuana as well. So I brought some data today. We've seen school suspensions. It's about cars and kids. Cars and kids. So with respect to kids, we've seen school suspensions go up significantly.